Hello and welcome to Valuechain News. I am Naomi Olewibe. First, the headlines. Komolafe confirms retrieval of ADAX OML licenses. NCDMB Navy to collaborate on vessel compliance and security. Why petrol may sell for 403 naira per litre. Now the news in detail. The Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission (NURPC), Mr. Gbenga Komolafe, has confirmed NNPC's retrieval of the oil mining licenses OML 123, 124, 126 and 137 previously held under a joint venture agreement between the National Oil Company and ADAX Petroleum, a Chinese company. The regulator accused the oil company of failing to meet the terms of the agreement, prompting it to halt the process. The NURPC's chief executive explained that the awardee was not able to meet its obligations in line with the provisions of the contract, noting that the breach meant the annulment of the process. And by the operations of the law, the award stand elapsed and it automatically reversed to the NNPC. That is the status for now, he explained. With the decision, the next step for NNPC is to look for new partners who would exploit the oil fields in a fresh production sharing agreement. Since March 2021, controversies have been trailing the award and revocation of the licenses. The Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board (NCDMB) and the Nigerian Navy on Wednesday agreed to collaborate to enforce the Nigerian Oil and Gas Industry Content Development (NOGICD) Act in maritime operations by curbing the use of non-compliant and non-categorized vessels and intercepting illegal vessels and non-compliant crew members on oil and gas locations. The DOE will set up a high-level committee that will work out detailed modalities for the collaboration in accomplishing their respective mandates. The decision were reached during the visit of the Executive Secretary of the NCDMB, Engineer Simbi Wabote, to the Chief of Naval Staff, Vice Admiral Awal Zubairu Gambo in Abuja. According to Wabote, the board receives alerts regularly via its whistleblowing portal and would like to investigate such information and recommend genuine cases to the Navy. Other possible areas of collaboration include support to the board in assessment visits to vessels and provisions of information to the board on vessels and tankers plying the Nigerian waters and oil and gas locations. Wabote indicated that the Navy is well situated to drive the security aspects of the industry's operation, particularly in securing the nation's shore against piracy and illegal oil bunkering. He said the Navy's role was critical because the bulk of Nigeria's oil and gas reserves lie along the coastal areas of the country, including major infrastructure and plants for hydrocarbon processing and exports. He highlighted the need for closer ties, particularly because of the board's long-term vision to increase Nigerian content levels in the oil and gas sector from the current level of about 40% to 70% by the year 2027. Nigerians may need to adjust their expectations ahead of possible removal of subsidy as the rising price of crude oil may push premium motor spirits, otherwise called petrol, to 403 naira per litre. As at 14 January 2022, PEMS pricing template was 403 naira per litre, making a subsidy differential of 241 naira on every litre sold in the country. According to the estimates, petrol per litre is 349 naira from country of import, but freight and landing costs pushed the figure to 384 naira, while distribution margin and bridging fund in transport logistics further pushed the cost to 403 naira. The Nigeria's Governors Forum (NGF) had in the early hours of yesterday rose from a 5-hour meeting with a resolution to initiate talks with the Nigeria Labour Congress and the Trade Union Congress on the proposed removal of subsidy on petrol. as NLC on Wednesday mandated all state organs to intensify mobilization for next Thursday's nationwide protest against the Nigerian government over its proposed increase in the pump price of petrol. The National Economic Council (NEC) rose from its first meeting this year in Abuja, disclosing that a decision on the removal of petrol subsidy will be made in June when the provision of its payment in the 2022 budget expires. While crude oil price is currently selling for about $89 per barrel, pushing landing costs and retail price to record high, the 36 governors are expected to convince Labour and other Nigerians on the need to finally remove petrol subsidy in the next 5 months after the 2012 move failed. Speaking ahead of the engagement, some stakeholders yesterday insisted that liberalization of downstream sector, including removal of subsidy, were necessary steps if the country must end its borrowing and revive the downstream segments of the nation's petroleum industry. Libya National Oil Corporation boss Mustafa Sanala has decried lack of state investment in the country's vital energy sector. Libya sits on the largest known oil reserves in Africa and is heavily dependent on revenue from its oil and gas exports. In a decade of violence since the 2011 revolt that overthrew and killed dictator Muammar Gaddafi, armed groups have frequently blockaded and damaged oil installations. In 2021, we received just 11% of the state budget allocated for the oil and gas sector after 2 years of receiving no funding and accruing large debts, Sanala said. Despite this, we achieved high production levels, he said during a rare press conference in the capital, Tripoli. Divisions between rival powers based in Libya's east and west have long held the country's economic activity hostage. OPEC and its allies are increasing oil production but can't solve all the sector's issues alone, the United Arab Energy Minister has said. Suhail Al-Mazrouei, who dropped the hint, believes that the industry needs investment through the involvement of international oil companies in order to provide adequate supplies. Crude prices rallied to a 7-year high above $89 a barrel in London on Wednesday as global demand recovers from the pandemic and supplies are curtailed by a host of disruptions. It's an increasing challenge for consumers as they grapple with inflation from fuels to food prices. A large contributor to the rally has been the failure of many OPEC nations to restore output halted during the pandemic as they contend with depressed spending of their own. The UAE remains committed to increasing its output as part of the OPEC Accord, Mazrouei said. The Federal Inland Revenue Service (FIRS) has revealed that it will give priority to digital taxation this year. This, it said, will be achieved through the deployment of technological tools in assessing entities that fall within the significant economic presence threshold and relevant turnover generated from Nigeria. Executive Chairman of FIRS, Mohammed Nami, disclosed this while speaking as a special guest at the PEDABO 2022 Annual Public-Private Sector Engagement. He said the target of FIRS is to achieve 100% automation of all its tax administration processes this year to block revenue leakages. NAMI called on taxpayers, consultants, collection agents, and other stakeholders in the tax system to partner with the FIRS to make taxation and tax revenue collection a pivot of economic development and growth. Before we end the news, here's a recap of our headlines. Komolafe confirms retrieval of ADAX OML licenses. NCDMB Navy to collaborate on vessel compliance and security. Why petrol may sell for 403 naira per litre. And that's the news. I am Naomi Oleribe. Good evening.